Rittenhouse's upcoming likely lawsuits against the media and all types of people who have continued to call him a murderer after he was acquitted by a jury of his peers. Is Kyle going to sue Whoopi Goldberg? The answer to that coming up in just a moment. But quick, leave a like, make sure you're subscribed, and hit that join button down below to unlock special features, support this channel, including having cool emojis. And let me introduce you to our co-host today. This is a guy, I mean, he's if anyone is part of the media, this guy right here has been on Fox Business, Fox News, Fox, Fox Music. He's
Fox
been on
Weather. I haven't been on Fox Weather yet.
He's been on the Fox movie channel. I mean, this guy has been all over Fox. He did the Fox and the Hound. He actually had a cameo. He actually did the voice of the silent hound in that movie. And this guy's been all over the place. Please welcome Jonathan Hoenig.
Great to be with you, Rucka. And we have kind of a rip from the headline story today. So hopefully we'll be able to apply objectivism, some objectivist principles. And I know that some of our viewers from the UK, and they might not necessarily know the whole backstory here of who just Kyle Rittenhouse is, but he's really emblematic of the so-called right wing of what's happening, especially with the younger people in the conservative movement in America right now. So kind of a great rip from the headlines topic that I'm excited to get with you today and with our super chatters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my understanding of the backstory is during the so-called, Summer of Love, the time when many cities in America were being torched and destroyed in the name of, justice, I guess, or Black Lives Mattering. Kyle Rittenhouse was, as a 16 or 17-year-old, something around that age, was basically circling his neighborhood, or he was circling a neighborhood, let's say, circling a part of town with a weapon. And, his purpose, according to him, was to defend property, which, seems to be correct. Like many people, he did not like seeing what was taking place. And he ended up in an altercation, which ended up in him shooting some people lethally. And he was then quickly accused by many people on social media, as well as establishment, legacy media, accused of murder. He was tried for murder, I believe, and acquitted for murder. But still, people like Whoopi Goldberg and Cenk Uygur would continue to call him a murderer. And in commonplace, this is all over social media, he's still a murderer. And he is talking about, he's strongly hinting at suing some of the people, some of the media establishments, media enterprises, I should say. He's going to sue. And I think he might have a good reason to. But right off the bat, I just want to say, there's actually no evidence he's going to personally sue Whoopi Goldberg. So that was a little bit of a fake news item that was going around out there. Now, Jonathan, you wish to share your screen, I understand.
Well, yeah, I want to share a few things. First of all, people always say about objectivists, when they start to learn about objectivists, they say, well, you just want no government, right? You just don't want any government. But I always like Yaron Brooks' point that government in objectivism is a necessary good. And one of the purposes of government is the legal system, is being there to protect your rights to come in and litigate disputes. And it's something that I don't take very lightly. I haven't been to court several times. I guess I've got a jury duty once or twice. I've been in a courtroom maybe once or twice, but it's kind of I'm not religious, Ruck, and I know you're probably not either, but it's kind of a holy place. It's a place where justice is being served. So whenever I hear people, frankly, threatening lawsuits, it's really easy to threaten a lawsuit. Everyone's threatening lawsuits. And when I hear them doing it about something that's trivial, it annoys me, because to me, they're saying, well, I'm treating the system of justice trivially. And the best exemplar of that is, and I know I'm going to just energize our super chats with this, but Donald J. Trump. I mean, I have a long list of everyone from Univision to the Club for Growth to the Culinary Workers of America, to John Kasich, to Ted Cruz, to the Republican Party, to Tony Schwartz, to New York Times, that Donald Trump has threatened to sue over the years, dozens and dozens of people. So, to begin with, this idea of trying to, I feel like if your rights have been violated, file a lawsuit. But to threaten a lawsuit it's something that pussies do.
Well, I agree. America, unfortunately, is a place where people rarely regret suing somebody. So you can sue somebody and you almost always have nothing to lose and everything to, and a lot of money to gain. However, when it comes to defamatory instances, such as we saw with Nick Sandmann, you know, there was a kid, he was on a school field trip. His only alleged crime was wearing a Make America Great hat. Other than that, he was just minding his own business, standing there with his classmates. A Native American gentleman walks up to them and starts, you know, singing and dancing for them. Nick just kind of looks back at him with a smile, and CNN and other media establishments, they take a picture of Nick looking at the Indian, and they strongly suggest that he walked over to this Indian man and was like trying to intimidate him and like, haha, look at me, MAGA, you're not welcome here, right? Go back to where you came from. And that was so clearly not the case. My understanding is Nick Sandmann successfully sued CNN and or others and was granted many, many millions of dollars because, yeah, his reputation was clearly intentionally tarnished, which I think you can prove damages in such a case. So now with Kyle Rittenhouse, the fact that Facebook was for a long time calling his act a mass murder. I mean, this was like one of those labels that showed up on Facebook. Like whenever you would look up Kyle Rittenhouse, you would see like Kyle Rittenhouse, who's accused, who's, you know, who committed mass murder or whose actions are, you know, like mass murder.
I have to interrupt for 1 second because this was seemingly what Tucker Carlson and others seem to kind of feed to Kyle is that, well, you know, Facebook did this, the media did that. But, you know, when you sue, when you bring a legal action, or when your rights are infringed, or they're infringed by somebody, right? I mean, they're infringed by, or some in particular. So Facebook did this. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, Facebook.com, because it's not just people on Facebook. It's actual, like the official kind of banner. You know how like if you have the word COVID in your Facebook post, there'll often be like a label underneath that says like, click here to learn more about COVID safety and whatnot. So my understanding is there was like an official Facebook like informational banner surrounding Kyle Rittenhouse that said he committed mass murder or strongly affiliating his name with mass murder. When, I mean, mass murder, I mean, even if he was wrong to shoot.
He did shoot more than one person. So
is that what makes it mass murder?
Shooting.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying it. It's funny. You asked, I wanted to share my screen, and you know, Kyle Rittenhouse is everywhere these days. I'm surprised if our audience probably doesn't know who he is. He is at the Turning Point Invitational. I think Charlie Kirk said something effective like, you know, ladies, you should know. He is doing the speaking circuit. He is doing that. And Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed somebody. No matter what you think of the whole situation, there was he killed somebody as a kid. And this was what his attorney advised him to do at the time. The one who got him acquitted, change his name and live a quiet life after his acquittal. I think he would have been well served, especially as a young man just getting his life going, to follow that advice. Now he wants to spend his teenage years, you know, on cable TV and threatening lawsuits against. I think I'm almost sad for him. It's taking a step back. He seems almost like the Greta of the right wing. But the problem is Greta's killing people more slowly. You could make the argument. Kyle just killed someone. He actually shot and killed someone today, or, you know, recently. So the whole thing I find kind of ugly in this idea of, oh, you know, threatening this one, threatening that one. Pass the lawsuit. I mean, fine, show the damages. I guess if Nick Sandmann was able to do it successfully, I guess so. I hate to see big tech being made once again the enemy by the right. I think it's a very convenient scapegoat. Oh, big technology companies, they wronged you so terribly. I mean, I have to roll my eyes. If you actually understand the violation of rights, you know, I think what the real idea of violating rights is, it's not Kyle Rittenhouse's rights that have been violated, in my opinion.
Look, I tend to take the position that you're taking, and I think at some point during this process of Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, I might have had a similar kind of cynical view, like, oh, come on, like what did the media actually do? But the more I learned about this, and kind of the more I realized there's actually a trial where the evidence is being analyzed and presented, and he's being found not guilty, and still he's being called a murderer, and still, you know, he needs to basically deal with all of this residual damage. Then yes, maybe it would be wise of him to change his name and move to a new to witness protection. But why should he have to do that? Is another question.
And here's this will be debated, and obviously, I mean, he's just threatening lawsuits. And here's the article, or I guess here's the quote from. Oh shit, that's not the one I wanted to share. Hold on. Here's the quote from. Here's the quote. "We're going to make the media pay for what they did to me," says Rittenhouse. "They've made it hard for me to live a normal life. I can't go out into public. I can't go to the store. It's hard for me to go anywhere without security. Doing basic things like taking my dog to the park is difficult. So they've made it very difficult for me to be normal. My fewer job opportunities, etc." Mm-hmm. And part of me feels a little bit like, let me get the world's smallest violin out and to file it. And maybe that's something you should think about before you engage in some actions like going out of state with a weapon as a kid and getting an altercation that leads to someone's death. There's a little bit of me like, look, you can't evade reality that you did what you did. You are not just, especially when you're going out and you're at Turning Point, you're doing conferences, you're waving your hands. He's making himself a subject of attention at the same time saying, oh, I just can't be an anonymous kid thanks to these evil big tech. You know, he should have followed his attorney's advice and gone and been a private, normal kid. And he's gone in just the opposite direction and threatening a lawsuit against who? For doing what?
Not Whoopi, it turns out. But look, so some people, they defend him like, yes, he had every reason to be where he was with his weapon. And I definitely don't see it that way. I think like most people, he should have stayed home. And yes, I know people say, well, the police were not doing their job. And that's a fair point. So what do you want? I mean, I have really no answer to that. But no, I agree. It was stupid of someone like Kyle Rittenhouse to be where he was when he was doing what he did. And even that being the case, he turns out he was not a murderer, and he was not a white supremacist like he's been accused of, and he was not a Proud Boy, and all these things.
Okay, so he wants to, so he's going to sue for defamation. He's going to sue for defamation. I mean, he has to, it's basically he has to show that he has been physically on some level impacted by this terrible thing that I guess social media companies have done to him. The media has done to him. He has to show damages. I mean, he has to show the same equivalent as someone coming and breaking in his house, hurting him physically, stealing his property. I mean, I guess I just go back to this idea that, Ruck, you have to show that your actual rights have been infringed upon. And I just think it's a real tough road to hoe for someone who is out there living a public life and now kind of to seemingly, I don't want to say profiting off of, but basically making a life based on his whole experience of defending himself. I don't know. I guess that's up for but he seems to be seeking out the same type of notoriety he is decrying in his lawsuits.
I mean, that's a fair point, I guess. Yeah, he is sort of cashing in on this fame, and it's going to give him a great lucrative career. But he is still correct that now if he can't go to the supermarket without being recognized, and many people really hate him, just imagine how you would feel when you can't go to the store without people looking at you in a threatening way and possibly intimidating you, and you never really know when you'll be safe and where you can go. And for what? He's not a white supremacist, and he did not intend to murder anybody. So, look, I mean, I don't want us to treat Tucker Carlson the way Tucker Carlson treats CNN, because it turns out CNN really are as bad as they're accused of being in some cases. When it comes to the Nick Sandmann thing, CNN clearly, they took an image of Nick Sandmann minding his own business and they turned him into an intimidating MAGA, anti-Indian guy. And CNN deserves to be sued in that case, I think. So I don't want us to always assume that everything Tucker says now is wrong because we hate Tucker. Like, I think we are. Yes, it is true that unfortunately the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world are becoming the sweethearts of Turning Point and of Fox News, and they're basically turning into martyrs and heroes. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but it still can also simultaneously be true that he was defamed. I agree it's difficult to prove slander and defamation, but if ever there was an instance of it, this could be it. And that might even include Facebook's labeling his act as a mass murderer before maybe he had his day in court.
Well, as I said, I mean, he has. And again, the whole case of it, that whole so-called summer of love, wink, wink, for people who are watching on audio, that's all in big scare quotes. I mean, it's anything but love. It was such a difficult and ugly time in history. If he's following and he's become kind of emblematic of the right wing. And I think back of, the tales of Harry Binswanger in the 1960s as a college student and what he was doing in terms of trying to get freedom of speech and everything on campus. And now what today's college students are doing, today's college, they should be applauding men like Harry Binswanger who are trafficking in ideas, not trafficking in weapons across state lines to go kill someone because they're protecting the streets. I mean, if that's kind of what the college conservative movement has come to, it has me shaking my head. But he's made himself a MAGA superstar. It's what he wants to do, fine. And he's following along the same line of this threatening to sue this one, threatening to sue that one. So, do it. To me, it just seems like, kind of something you say to puff up your chest, rather than actually, if you feel like your rights have been violated, bring that suit. Don't hesitate. But to kind of, I don't know, the whole thing is pretty distasteful to me. And I'm especially since big media is once again seen as the so-called evil doer in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Big media didn't have a gun. Big media didn't pull any trigger.
That's true, but we know there's more types of violation of rights than just physical force. So, obviously fraud is an instance of force where no actual physical initiation takes place. And if the media is committing fraud where they're lying about somebody, if the media were to go, CNN were to announce Jonathan Hoenig is a white supremacist, then I think you might have a case for suing them.
I've been involved in this. I sued Jim Cramer from the-street.com 20 years ago. I sued Forbes 20 years ago. So I've been involved in cases just like this. And so I'm familiar with it. And I just Christopher, who's a regular donator, says, well, Jonathan's right. He's a young man who killed people. He needs therapy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But not a speaking tour and lawsuits.
I mean, definitely he needs
TBA.
Therapy. I'm not crazy about seeing him become the new right-wing sweetheart with a book deal probably and a speaking tour, but definitely he may have grounds for a lawsuit. I mean, so what do we do? I mean, look, when it is evident that CNN is lying about stuff, we know CNN lies. They lied about Nick Sandmann. They lie every time Hamas starts firing rockets at Israel. We know how CNN reports the news. So we know they blatantly lie. They knowingly distort and misrepresent the facts. So if you are the 17-year-old who now has your reputation much worse than it needed to be because of CNN's lies, then I guess I don't see why it's distasteful to sue. I can see why many mistakes were made to get to where he got, but why not sue CNN?
I mean, this is something that, I think people probably like Adam Ossoff are experts in. I mean, there's this standard of proof as a public figure, and you've been involved with Rucka and, some of your history in terms of, people in the public space, in the world of parody, in the world. So there's a body of law about this. So I guess that's my point, is that if Kyle feels that his rights have been infringed upon, he should pursue that legal action. I mean, I guess I'm sad in which I look at a young man who probably 4 or 5 years ago kind of enjoyed hunting or enjoyed guns in his small little way. And, now he is this kind of face of a movement with all the pressures of, TV and notoriety. And it seems to me like a really unhealthy way to grow up, knowing that your notoriety comes from the fact that you killed someone. And I know Anna is saying, well, he's defending himself and I don't know. I don't know if at age 16, you're ready to become the poster child of any movement. I think it's a little early for that. You're still in developing, in my opinion. So the whole thing is pretty ugly to me. And I'd say the same thing about Greta as well. I mean, when Greta was out there, and it's not just her ideology. It's not just her philosophy. It's just the fact these are kids. And I think that their brains are still developing. They're not even 18 years old. So to kind of position them up as it's Kyle, the hero, versus Facebook, the evildoer. I just feel like it's too young for that. It's too young to be involved with that.
Yeah, look, we definitely agree that the whole situation is very disheartening. I mean, 2020 to me still kind of brings sort of tremors and nightmares. I mean, no question that if America was a healthy place philosophically, if politically there was a clear understanding of the job of police, and if most citizens understood that turning to violence in the street is not the answer to anything, then of course Kyle never would have been in the position he was in. And even with the declining state of civilization in the summer of 2020, there was still no reason for Kyle to take his gun and go patrolling the neighborhood. He should have just stayed home and let the adults worry about this, even if they were neglecting to do so. So, I mean, there's just so much disheartening about the whole situation. And then once Kyle does get in that altercation, I wish that the media would be responsible and that they would see the humanity of this young man and realize, even if he made some mistakes, that's no excuse to lie about him. And that all the people on social media would then not start calling him a white supremacist when there's zero evidence of that. Basically, anyone who was not explicitly part of Black Lives Matter was considered to be, you know, a white supremacist, when obviously that's a ridiculous accusation. So, I mean, there's just so much wrong with the state of the world. So in so many ways, the young are basically, they're growing up in a world that is so irrational and there's so much damage. And it really is kind of like reading Atlas Shrugged and just kind of seeing everything fall apart and people arguing over whose fault it is, when really it's the general lack of rationality that has brought this about.
And people in the chat, I'm sure from all over the world, saying, "Oh, how brave Kyle is! You know, he's winning out and defending with his gun." I feel like if you want to be brave, start sending around your own Brooks speeches or Alex Epstein on the environment, or start sharing something that's really radical. There's nothing radical about walking around the neighborhood with a gun. What's radical is trying to change people's ideas. That's what we're doing here with the Ayn Rand Center UK. That's the only thing that's going to ultimately Kyle Rittenhouse has changed no one's ideas about anything. It's only hardened them further into their shell. I think it's what we're doing here with the Ayn Rand Center UK. It's objectivism. That's the only thing that's radical that's out there. And, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse and any other young person on either side of the so-called philosophical aisle would be much better served by reading something, listening to some of the Ayn Rand Center UK podcast, supporting us, becoming a member, rather than championing a young man who at basically a pubescent age was patrolling around a street of a city, protecting businesses, which he didn't even know the businesses had no connection with them, let alone being his business, with a weapon that, as I understand, he wasn't even trained to understand or use. So this is not an ideology, I think, these are not ideas, I think, that anyone should be championing anyone to get around. It's so kind of lower on the totem pole than the real fundamentals of what at least we're trying to do here with the Ayn Rand Center UK.
Yeah, the real battle is in the battle of the intellect, the battle of ideas, philosophy. It's the battle that's not going to quite be televised. It's not going to happen in the form of people going into the streets and fighting with guns or with fists. It's going to be with thinking people who challenge one another and who make propositions and prove their case, but with reference to reality. That is the way that the world is going to be saved. And that is the battle that, you know, we're hoping to help fight here. So thank you all for your support. No super chats today, which is hopefully the exception that proves the rule. But thank you all nonetheless for participating in the chat, especially the members. Hit that join button down below on YouTube if you want to get access to cool emojis and support the channel. Coming up today at 7 p.m. UK time, it's the Fountainhead Book Club, open to members. Those are the members I was just referring to a moment ago. That's coming up today. Then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's Artful Tuesdays with Kirk Barbera and Maria Lazareva. They're going to discuss two love poems, Love's Philosophy and Bright Star. All right, Jonathan, this was an interesting conversation. We discussed some very relevant topics. Christopher Smith with 149 Canadian. Thank you for that. Last minute super chat, the highest super chat of the day, in fact. Yeah, this was interesting, Jonathan. See, we don't always have to see things exactly the same way, but we need to be friends. That's what I say. Oh, and then Kathleen with $2, not dollars, but £2 says, here you go. So remember, everybody, we don't always have to agree, but we have to be friends. Thank you all for joining us. See you back here.
We have to be friends?
It'd be nice. It'd be nice. I could use a friend right now. See you all back here tomorrow for the Daily Objective. Thank you. Leave a super thanks down below, and goodbye.